Tonight, we travel back into one of the oldest river valleys the world has ever known, where the night air is warm, the stars shine without hurry, and the slow waters of the Nile move quietly through the darkness. The villages are sleeping now, though not for much longer. Before the first light touches the eastern horizon, many people will already be awake. The river decides their days, their seasons, and often their hopes. It has done so for countless generations. There are no loud sounds here. Only the gentle whisper of reeds brushing together in the light breeze. Somewhere along the riverbank, frogs sing softly. A small fishing boat rocks almost without movement, tied carefully to a wooden post that has been smoothed by many hands over many years. Far away, a dog lets out a single bark before settling once more beside a mud brick doorway. The night feels wide and peaceful. The stars above ancient Egypt appear brighter than almost anywhere else. Without smoke from great cities or bright lights to hide them, they seem close enough to touch. Farmers have looked at these same stars for generations, learning when to prepare their fields, when to expect the changing winds, and when the great river might begin its yearly gift. Everything begins with the Nile. Long before sunrise, before bread is baked and before children wake inside cool mud brick homes, the river is already awake. It never truly sleeps. Its gentle current carries tiny pieces of rich black earth from lands far to the south. That dark soil is more valuable than gold to the people who live here. It is the promise of another harvest. The promise that wheat will grow once again. The promise that families will eat. For many months each year, the land beside the Nile looks dry beneath the warm Egyptian sun. Dust settles softly on sandals. Palm leaves barely move in the heavy afternoon air. Goats search patiently for patches of green. The earth cracks beneath bare feet. Then, almost as if the river has remembered an old promise, everything begins to change. The flood does not arrive with crashing waves. It comes slowly, patiently, quietly. Day after day, the water rises a little higher. The river stretches beyond its familiar banks. Water slips gently into nearby fields. Small paths disappear beneath shallow pools. Wooden fences become islands. Children watch with wide but peaceful eyes as places where they played only weeks before slowly vanish beneath calm brown water. No one is surprised. This is exactly what everyone has been waiting for. An old farmer steps outside before dawn. His sandals press softly into damp earth. He walks toward the river without speaking. The morning air feels cooler than it will later in the day. Tiny insects dance above the water's surface. Birds begin their first songs while the eastern sky slowly changes from black to deep blue. He kneels beside the rising river. His hands are rough from years of working fields beneath the Egyptian sun. Every wrinkle tells a story of another season, another harvest, another flood. He dips his fingers into the water, feeling its coolness against skin warmed by many summers. The river has come again. Behind him, smoke begins rising from village ovens. Someone is already baking bread. The smell of fresh grain slowly mixes with the scent of wet earth. It is a comforting smell, one that has welcomed countless mornings across countless years. His wife is awake now. Inside their home, she quietly grinds grain between two heavy stones. The steady sound fills the small room without disturbing its peace. Their youngest child still sleeps on a woven reed mat nearby, wrapped lightly against the coolness that exists only during these early hours. Their oldest son walks outside carrying a clay jar. He heads toward the river to collect fresh water before many others arrive. Along the path he meets neighbors doing exactly the same thing. Few words are spoken. Morning belongs to quiet voices. Everyone notices the flood, Everyone smiles. Not because life has suddenly become easy. Farming in ancient Egypt is never easy. Days are long. The sun grows fierce before midday. Backs ache. Hands blister. Shoulders carry heavy baskets again and again. But the flood means possibility. Without it, fields would remain dry. Without it, wheat would not grow. Without it, villages would struggle through another year. The Nile brings more than water. It brings life itself. Far to the south, rains have fallen in distant mountains that many Egyptian farmers will never see. Those rains have traveled for weeks, joining streams and rivers until finally reaching the Great Nile. By the time the flood water reaches these villages, it carries rich black mud that settles gently across every flooded field. This dark earth is soft beneath bare feet. Children often laugh as they sink into it while helping their parents mark field boundaries after the water begins to fall. Adults laugh too, though more quietly. Mud covers their ankles, their legs, sometimes nearly to their knees. No one complains very much. The mud means fertile land. The mud means hope. As morning continues, more people gather along the riverbank. Fishermen inspect their small boats. Scribes carry smooth wooden writing boards beneath their arms. Temple workers watch the rising water with careful attention. Merchants discuss how high the flood might climb this year. Some years it rises just enough. Some years it rises a little more. Sometimes it rises less than hoped. Every family watches carefully. The height of the flood shapes nearly everything that follows. Near one village stands a simple stone structure built for measuring the river's height. Carefully carved steps disappear beneath the water one by one as the flood grows. Men trained to record these changes visit each day. They study the water quietly before making careful notes. Their work is important. Farmers depend upon knowing what kind of season may lie ahead. If the flood reaches healthy levels, everyone breathes a little easier. If it remains too low, concern spreads slowly through the villages. If it rises too high, homes nearest the river may need repairs after the waters leave. Nothing is certain. Yet every year begins with watching the river. As sunlight finally reaches the tops of the palm trees, the village fully awakens. Children run between homes carrying baskets. Women shape soft dough into round loaves before placing them into hot clay ovens. Smoke drifts lazily upward into the brightening sky. Donkeys wait patiently beside small carts loaded with jars and woven baskets. A fisherman unties his boat. The rope has become damp from the rising water. He pushes gently away from shore using a long wooden pole. Ripples spread quietly across the river's surface before disappearing once again into calmness. Fishing changes during the flood. Some places become easier to reach. Others disappear beneath deeper water. Fish explore new flooded areas where insects gather among fresh plants. The fisherman knows these patterns well. His father taught him. His grandfather learned them before that. Knowledge passes gently from one generation to the next, carried not only by words but by quiet observation. Across the flooded fields, white birds gather in graceful groups. They search patiently through shallow water for tiny creatures stirred by the changing river. Their reflections shimmer beneath them as the morning sun climbs higher. Nearby, young boys help guide a pair of oxen along the edges of fields that will soon be planted after the waters retreat. The animals move slowly, almost lazily, enjoying the cooler hours before the heat arrives. No one rushes them. Everything has its proper pace. Ancient Egyptian life often moves according to rhythms that cannot be hurried. The river rises when it is ready. The flood recedes when its time has come. Seeds are planted only after the earth is prepared. Harvest arrives months later. Patience is not simply admired here. It is necessary. As the morning grows warmer, workers begin repairing small irrigation channels damaged during the previous season. Using simple wooden tools, they shape the soft earth carefully. Every channel must guide future water where it is needed most. A single mistake could leave one field too dry while another receives too much water. The work demands attention rather than speed. Sweat slowly forms across foreheads. Hands become coated in damp black soil. Voices remain calm. Occasionally someone pauses to straighten aching shoulders before returning quietly to work. Nearby, an elderly woman sits beneath the shade of a sycamore tree weaving baskets from reeds gathered near the river. Her fingers move with remarkable confidence despite her many years. Each strip bends smoothly into place. She has woven baskets for nearly her entire life. Some carried grain. Others carried vegetables. Some held fish fresh from the Nile. Others stored bread inside family homes. Every basket begins with patient hands. Children gather around her from time to time, watching without speaking. One day they too will learn. The flood season is not only about fields. It changes nearly every part of daily life. Paths become waterways. Boats replace walking for certain journeys. Neighbors visit each other by water instead of dusty roads. Merchants adjust their travel. Builders wait before beginning certain projects. Everything listens to the river. By midday, the warmth becomes heavier. The cool morning breeze fades. Sunlight reflects brightly from the flood waters until the entire landscape seems to glow. Farmers cover their heads with simple cloth to shield themselves from the strongest rays. Many pause beneath palm trees for short rests while sharing coarse bread, onions, and cool water carried from home in clay jars. No meal is hurried. There is little conversation. After hours of physical work, silence often feels more comforting than words. Someone tears a piece of bread and offers it to another worker. The gesture requires no explanation. People depend upon one another here. Fields are too large for one family alone. Canals require many hands. Harvest demands neighbors working together from sunrise until evening. The flood reminds everyone of this simple truth. No one controls the Nile. Everyone lives beside it together. As afternoon slowly unfolds, scribes continue recording measurements. Their brushes move across smooth surfaces with practiced care. Numbers matter greatly. Accurate records help temples organize grain storage, labor schedules, and future planning. Though they spend less time beneath the burning sun than farmers, their work also requires patience. Hours pass quietly while writing. Eyes grow tired. Hands become stiff. Still they continue. Every role supports another. Without scribes, planning becomes difficult. Without farmers, there is no grain. Without fishermen, fewer meals reach village tables. Without builders, canals crumble. Without potters, water cannot be stored safely. The ancient world rests upon countless ordinary people whose names history rarely remembers. Yet each morning they wake before sunrise. Each evening they return home weary. Each year they wait faithfully for the flood. And so, as the afternoon light begins its slow journey toward evening, the waters of the Nile continue to spread gently across the waiting fields, carrying with them the rich dark soil that generations of farmers have welcomed with quiet gratitude, while the villages settle into another peaceful day shaped entirely by the calm and steady heartbeat of the great river. The afternoon sun lingers over the valley, warm and bright, while the flood water rests quietly across the fields. Nothing about the Nile seems hurried. The river has carried its waters for thousands of years, and today it moves with the same patient rhythm it has always known. Gentle ripples drift around reeds that bend softly in the breeze. Small insects skim across the surface before disappearing into the shimmering light. The village continues its work without rushing. The farmers know that there are moments for labor and moments for waiting. During the flood, waiting becomes part of the work itself. The fields cannot yet receive seed. The rich black earth must first settle. The water must slowly return to the river, leaving behind the fertile layer that makes life possible in this dry land. So while nature quietly prepares the fields, people prepare everything else. Near the edge of the village, several men sit beneath the broad shade of an acacia tree, repairing wooden farming tools that have worn down after another long season. One smooths the handle of a hoe with careful strokes of a stone blade. Another replaces worn rope tied around the neck of a wooden shovel. Beside them, a younger apprentice watches every movement without speaking much. There is no written instruction for this work. Learning comes from watching. The older craftsmen rarely explain every detail. Instead, they work slowly, allowing younger eyes to notice how tightly a knot should be tied, how smooth a handle should feel, and how a simple tool can last many more years if treated with care. The smell of freshly cut wood mixes with the warm scent of dry reeds stacked nearby. Occasionally someone wipes sweat from his forehead before returning to his quiet task. No one feels the need to hurry. The flood has given them this short season to prepare. Across the village, women gather near large clay ovens that have already been warm since before sunrise. Fresh loaves of bread continue to emerge one after another. Each loaf is shaped by practiced hands that have repeated the same motions almost every day of their lives. Grain was harvested months before. It has been carefully stored inside large clay jars protected from insects and moisture. Now handfuls of wheat become flour. Flour becomes dough. Dough becomes bread. Bread becomes the meal that carries a family through another day beneath the Egyptian sun. A young girl watches her grandmother knead the dough. Her small hands try to copy the older woman's movements. Sometimes the dough sticks to her fingers. She smiles quietly. Her grandmother smiles too. Neither speaks very much. The lesson is gentle. The rhythm of pressing, folding, and shaping fills the room with quiet purpose. Outside, smoke rises slowly into the blue afternoon sky. The smell of baking bread drifts through narrow village paths, passing mud brick homes whose walls stay pleasantly cool inside despite the growing heat outdoors. The homes themselves are simple. Most are built from sun-dried bricks made of Nile mud mixed with chopped straw. Many have flat roofs where families sleep during the hottest months of the year. The thick walls protect against the burning afternoon heat, making the inside dim and peaceful. A woven reed mat covers part of the floor. Simple wooden stools rest beside low tables. Clay jars stand neatly against one wall, holding water, grain, oil, or dried vegetables. Nothing inside is unnecessary. Everything has its purpose. A woman pours cool water from one clay jar into another cup. The water has remained surprisingly fresh because the porous clay allows tiny amounts of moisture to slowly evaporate, gently cooling what remains inside. She drinks slowly. After hours beside the warm ovens, even cool water feels like a small gift. Outside the village, the flood water stretches quietly across the landscape. The bright reflection of the afternoon sun dances across its surface. Children cannot resist exploring the shallow edges. Bare feet splash softly through warm water that barely reaches their ankles. They chase tiny fish that have wandered into newly flooded places. Most escape easily. The children laugh anyway. Nearby, Several mothers keep watch while continuing their own work. One washes linen cloth against a smooth stone. Another cleans cooking bowls using sand and river water. A third braids long bundles of reeds that will later become sleeping mats. The sounds remain gentle. Water. Soft conversation. The occasional call of a bird. Nothing disturbs the calm. Further along the riverbank, fishermen prepare long-woven nets. Although the flood changes where fish travel, it also creates new opportunities. Fish swim into flooded marshes where insects gather among fresh plants. Experienced fishermen understand these changing paths. An older fisherman slowly unfolds a large net across the ground. Every knot is examined carefully. If one section has weakened, it is repaired immediately. A single broken knot could allow an entire day's catch to escape. His fingers move steadily through the tangled fibers. Years of experience have made every movement almost effortless. His grandson sits nearby. At first, the boy only watches. Then he is handed a small section to repair himself. His work is slower. The knots are less even. But no one complains. Learning cannot be rushed. Like the river, skill grows little by little. The afternoon slowly begins to soften. The brightest heat has passed its highest point. Long shadows stretch farther across the village paths. Donkeys stand quietly beneath trees, flicking their tails at flies. A few goats wander lazily between homes, nibbling leaves wherever they can find them. The air feels heavy but peaceful. From somewhere beyond the village comes the slow tapping of stone against stone. Builders have returned to repairing a small storage building whose outer wall cracked during the previous dry season. The flood gives them time before planting begins again. Each mud brick is lifted carefully into place. Fresh mud mortar fills the narrow spaces between them. The wall rises slowly. No one measures progress by hours. The building will be finished when it is finished. Nearby, a potter sits beside his wheel. His hands are stained with fine gray clay gathered from the riverbank. He wets the spinning clay gently before pressing it into shape. A wide storage jar begins to rise beneath his fingers. The walls become thinner. The neck grows taller. The opening becomes perfectly round. Watching him work feels almost like watching the Nile itself. Nothing appears forced. Everything happens through steady, patient motion. Once shaped, the jars will dry beneath the sun before spending many hours inside a hot kiln. Some will hold grain. Others will carry water. Some will store beer made from barley. Many will outlive the people who made them. Simple objects often remain long after names have been forgotten. As the day continues, several scribes walk quietly toward the flooded fields carrying writing boards beneath one arm. Their linen clothing stays cleaner than that of the farmers, but the work still demands long hours beneath the same warm sky. One pauses beside the measuring steps that descend into the river. He studies the water carefully. The flood has risen another small amount since yesterday. He dips his brush into dark ink. Carefully he records the level. Every mark matters. The records kept today may help future generations understand the rhythm of the Nile. Nearby, a temple official quietly observes. The flood is not only important for farmers. It shapes taxes, grain storage, labor schedules, and offerings brought to temples throughout the year. The health of the river touches every part of Egyptian life. As afternoon slowly becomes evening, birds begin returning toward nests hidden among tall reeds. The air cools only slightly. A soft breeze finally arrives from across the river. People notice immediately. Shoulders relax. Faces lift toward the welcome wind. For a few precious moments, Working becomes easier. An elderly farmer walks through the shallow floodwater toward one of his fields. He carries no tools. There is nothing to plant today. Instead, he simply wishes to see the land. He remembers standing here as a small boy beside his own father. The flood looked much the same. The reeds swayed the same way. The birds flew overhead just as they do now. Many years have passed. Many harvests have filled his storage jars. Some years were generous. Others were lean. Yet the river has remained the quiet companion of every season. He kneels slowly. His hands sink into the rich black silt beneath the shallow water. The mud feels cool despite the warmth of the afternoon. He rubs it gently between his fingers. Soft. Smooth. Full of life. This simple black earth will soon become wheat. It will become bread. It will become food for children who have not yet been born. The thought brings him quiet comfort. Back in the village, evening preparations begin. Small cooking fires are lit outside many homes. Clay pots simmer gently over glowing coals. The smell of onions cooking with lentils drifts through the narrow lanes. Fresh herbs gathered from garden plots add gentle fragrance to the evening meal. Some families roast fish caught earlier that morning. Others prepare beans seasoned with salt and crushed garlic. Simple meals. Honest meals. Meals earned through long hours beneath the Egyptian sun. Children return home dusty and tired. Their feet have carried them across village paths, riverbanks, and flooded edges all day long. They wash quietly before sitting beside parents and grandparents. Families gather close together. The day's work has ended. Voices remain soft. No one speaks loudly after sunset. The peaceful darkness seems to encourage slower conversation. Stories pass gently from older generations to younger ones. A grandfather recalls a flood from many years before, when the water reached nearly the highest stone on the measuring steps. His grandchildren listen with wide eyes. They imagine boats floating where goats now graze. They imagine fields disappearing beneath endless water. The old man smiles softly. Every flood has its own memory. Every year leaves its own story. Above them, the first stars begin appearing once again. One by one, they quietly fill the evening sky. The same stars that welcomed the previous night now return without fail. The Nile reflects their light in broken silver lines that shimmer across the calm current. Fishermen preparing for night fishing push small boats away from shore. Their oars enter the water almost silently. Gentle circles spread outward before fading into darkness. The village grows quieter. Only the crackling of cooking fires and the distant sound of frogs remain. Warm bread is shared. Clay cups are filled with cool water. The long day slowly releases its tiredness. Inside one small home, a mother gently brushes dust from her young son's hair before he curls onto a woven reed mat. Outside, his father looks once more toward the river. Even in darkness, he can hear its quiet movement. Tomorrow, he will wake before dawn. He will walk once again to the flooded fields. He will watch the water. He will wait with patient hope. For this is the quiet fortune of every farmer beside the Nile, not wealth counted in gold or jewels, but the steady promise that when the river rises with kindness, life itself rises with it, carrying another peaceful season into the ancient valley where every dawn begins beside the calm and faithful waters of Egypt's eternal river. Night settles gently across the valley, covering the flooded fields with a deep and peaceful stillness. The day's warmth does not disappear all at once. The mud bricks of the village homes still hold the sun's heat, slowly releasing it into the quiet air. Above, the stars seem even brighter now, stretching from one horizon to the other in endless patterns that generations of Egyptians have watched with calm and familiar eyes. The Nile continues to move without interruption. It does not sleep. Its quiet current slips around islands of reeds and clusters of papyrus, carrying with it the same rich water that has traveled so many miles from distant lands. The surface reflects both moonlight and starlight, creating long silver ribbons that drip gently with every movement of the river. Along one section of the riverbank, a fisherman waits patiently inside his small wooden boat. The night is one of his favorite times. The air is cooler now. The insects have become quieter. The fish often move differently after sunset, and years of careful observation have taught him where to lower his woven net. He does not hurry. He has learned that rushing only creates unnecessary noise. Instead, he lets the boat drift slowly with the gentle current before lowering the net into the calm water. The splash is barely louder than a whisper. Then he waits. Waiting has become as natural to him as rowing. His father taught him that the Nile rewards patience far more often than speed. So he sits quietly, listening. A bird calls somewhere in the darkness. Tiny ripples touch the side of the boat. Far away, another fisherman gently taps his paddle against the water as he changes direction. The sounds are soft enough that they almost become part of the silence itself. Back in the village, most families have finished their evening meal. Clay bowls have been rinsed with water from large storage jars. The last pieces of bread have been wrapped carefully inside woven baskets to keep them fresh until morning. Cooking fires burn lower now, glowing with deep orange light rather than bright flames. The smell of warm ashes mixes with the scent of baked grain and damp earth drifting in from the flooded fields. An elderly woman slowly sweeps the floor of her home with a bundle of reeds tied together. Dust gathers into small piles near the doorway before being carried outside. She performs this simple task every evening. The motion is familiar. Comforting. She hardly needs to think about it. Nearby, her daughter folds linen cloth that had dried beneath the afternoon sun. Each piece is smoothed carefully before being placed inside a wooden chest. Nothing is wasted. Every object inside the home has required many hours of work. Every basket, every pot, every woven mat carries the memory of patient hands. On the flat roof above them, two children lie quietly beside their father. The roof is cooler than the room below. Many families choose to sleep outside during the warmer months, where the night breeze offers gentle relief after long days beneath the desert sun. The youngest child points toward the stars. He asks softly about one bright light hanging low above the horizon. His father smiles. He does not answer with complicated explanations. Instead, he tells a simple story that his own father once shared many years ago. The story has traveled across generations just as faithfully as the river itself. The child listens with growing sleepiness. Soon his eyes grow heavy. The stars slowly blur together. Before long, he has drifted into peaceful sleep while the quiet voice continues above him. Across the village, another family prepares for tomorrow. A farmer sits beside a small oil lamp whose flame flickers gently whenever a breeze slips through the doorway. He is repairing the leather straps used to guide his oxen. The straps have become worn after many months of work. Carefully he threads new pieces through the old loops. His fingers move more slowly than they once did. Years of farming have stiffened his joints. Still, he continues with patient determination. Tomorrow the flood will still cover much of the land. There is no urgent need for the straps just yet. But he believes that every quiet evening offers a chance to prepare for the busy days that will come. Preparation brings peace. Unexpected problems become smaller when simple work is done ahead of time. His wife sits nearby spinning flax into fine thread. The spindle turns steadily between her fingers. The growing thread wraps around the wooden shaft in neat, even layers. Soon this thread will become linen cloth. Perhaps it will become clothing. Perhaps it will become a sack for grain. Perhaps it will be traded with another village. For now, it is simply thread growing longer beneath careful hands. The little oil lamp fills the room with warm golden light. Its flame dances softly across the mud brick walls. Shadows rise and fall with every small movement. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing feels uncertain. Only quiet work shared between two people who have spent many years building a life together beside the Nile. Outside, a gentle breeze moves through the date palms. The long leaves rustle softly against one another. A donkey shifts its weight while resting beside a stable wall. Several goats lie quietly together, already asleep. Even the village dogs have settled into silence. The peaceful night belongs to those who rest and those who keep gentle watch. Near one of the grain storage buildings, two guards remain awake. Their task is simple: protect the harvest already gathered. Although the next planting season has not yet begun, grain from previous harvests remains carefully stored. These supplies must last until new crops can be grown and harvested again. The guards walk slowly around the building. Their sandals make quiet sounds against the packed earth. Every so often they pause to look toward the river. The moonlight reveals the calm flood water stretching across the valley like a great shining blanket. There is comfort in seeing it. It reminds everyone that the land is being prepared. Even while people sleep, the river continues its quiet work. Far beyond the village, where cultivated fields meet the open desert, the wind shapes small ripples across the sand. The desert never completely disappears from Egyptian life. It waits patiently beyond the green ribbon of fertile land. The contrast is gentle but constant. On one side lies life fed by water. On the other stretches endless dry earth beneath the stars. The people understand this balance well. They do not fear the desert. They simply know where life can flourish. The Nile is their companion against the great silence of the sands. As midnight passes, the air grows cooler. Moisture rises gently from the flood water. A thin mist begins to form over the lowest parts of the fields. It drifts quietly between patches of reeds before slowly fading again. The world seems softer now. Edges blur. The distant palm trees appear almost dreamlike beneath the pale moon. Inside one small workshop, a potter wakes briefly. He had fallen asleep beside his cooling kiln after a long day of work. Carefully he checks the temperature by placing his hand near the opening. The heat has fallen enough. He gently removes one newly fired water jar. Its surface glows faintly in the moonlight. He taps it softly with his knuckles. The clear sound tells him it has baked well. Satisfied, he smiles quietly before placing the jar beside several others. Tomorrow they will be carried into the village. Some families will buy them. Others may trade grain, vegetables, or woven cloth. The potter returns to his mat and soon falls asleep once more. The kiln slowly cools beside him. Further down the river, reeds sway gently as a family of ducks glides through the calm water. Tiny waves spread behind them before disappearing into the darkness. A fish leaps briefly above the surface. For a single moment the moonlight catches the droplets before they fall back into the Nile. The river becomes smooth again. Nothing disturbs its patient rhythm for long. Hours continue to pass. One by one, the stars slowly shift across the sky. Ancient Egyptian farmers have watched this quiet movement countless times. Without clocks or modern calendars, the heavens become familiar companions. The stars help mark the seasons. They quietly remind people that time moves steadily, just as the river does. An elderly scribe sleeps lightly inside his modest home. Beside him rests a bundle of rolled papyrus tied neatly with linen cord. Tomorrow he will continue recording the flood's progress. His careful writing may seem small compared to the great river outside. Yet every recorded measurement becomes part of a larger memory. Years from now, another scribe may unroll those same sheets. He may compare one flood with another. He may notice patterns that only patience can reveal. Knowledge grows slowly, much like the crops themselves. Before dawn, the village begins to stir almost without anyone noticing. A rooster calls softly somewhere beyond the houses. A woman wakes to grind fresh grain before the day's heat arrives. The familiar sound of stone turning against stone begins again. Slow, steady, comforting. Nearby, another family lights a small cooking fire. Thin ribbons of smoke rise quietly into the dark blue sky that now hints at morning. The stars begin fading one after another. The eastern horizon slowly brightens with pale silver light. The Nile reflects the first colors of the coming day. Birds hidden among the papyrus begin their morning songs. Their voices grow gradually stronger as more of the valley awakens. The fisherman who spent the night upon the river gently lifts his net. Water streams back into the Nile. Several shining fish twist quietly inside the woven mesh. It is not a great catch, but it is enough. Enough for breakfast. Enough to trade with neighbors. Enough to be thankful for another peaceful night beside the generous river. He rows slowly toward the village. The boat glides almost silently through the morning mist. As he approaches the shore, he sees farmers already gathering near the flooded fields. Just as they did yesterday. Just as they will tomorrow. Each morning begins with the same quiet ritual. They walk to the edge of the water. They study the flood. They notice how far it has spread. They gently press the dark mud beneath their feet. The rich black earth feels slightly different today. The water has begun to settle. Almost without anyone realizing it, another small step has been taken toward the coming planting season. Hope does not arrive all at once. It grows little by little, just as the flood rises little by little. Each peaceful morning adds another quiet promise to the land. Each gentle sunrise reminds every farmer that fortune is rarely sudden. It is found instead in the steady return of the Nile, in the patient waiting beside flooded fields, in the simple work of ordinary hands, and in another calm dawn that spreads its golden light across ancient Egypt, where the river continues its timeless journey through the sleeping valley. The first light of morning spreads slowly across the eastern sky, so gently that it seems to wake the valley one breath at a time. The stars fade without hurry, and the moon grows pale before quietly disappearing into the brightening blue above the desert. A coolness still lingers in the air, though everyone knows it will not last. Within a few hours, the familiar warmth of the Egyptian sun will settle once again upon the river, the fields, the rooftops, and the narrow village paths. For now, however, the morning belongs to softness. Mist hangs low over the flood water. The papyrus reeds stand almost motionless. The surface of the Nile is smooth enough to reflect the sky like polished stone. The village wakes gradually. Inside one mud brick home, an old woman has already been awake for some time. She sits beside a simple grinding stone, turning grain into flour with slow and steady movements. Her hands have performed this work nearly every morning since she was a young girl. Even now, with silver hair gathered beneath a linen cloth, the motion remains graceful and familiar. The steady sound of stone against stone becomes one of the first voices of the new day. Nearby, Her granddaughter rubs sleep from her eyes before sitting beside her. She watches quietly. There is no need for many words. One day these hands will become her own. One day she will wake before sunrise, just as her grandmother has done for so many years. Outside, the village paths slowly fill with life. A young man carries 2 empty clay jars balanced across his shoulders with a smooth wooden pole. His footsteps are careful as he walks toward the riverbank. He has made this journey every morning for as long as he can remember. The flood has brought fresh water closer than usual. The path is shorter now. Still, he enjoys the quiet walk before the village becomes busy. As he reaches the water's edge, he kneels carefully. The coolness surprises him every morning, even after all these years. He lowers the first jar beneath the surface. Tiny bubbles rise. The jar fills slowly. He lifts it with both hands before setting it gently upon the bank. Then he fills the second. Nearby, several women are already washing linen garments. The cloth is dipped into the river, rubbed gently against smooth stones, then rinsed again until the water runs clear. The rhythm is peaceful. Lift. Wash. Rinse. Fold. Repeat. Soft conversation drifts through the cool air, never loud enough to disturb the quiet beauty of the morning. Children arrive soon afterward. Some carry small baskets. Others simply follow older brothers and sisters, curious to watch the adults begin another day. A little boy crouches near the edge of the flood water, fascinated by tiny snails slowly climbing the stems of reeds. He reaches toward one. It pulls quietly into its shell. The child smiles. Everything along the Nile seems alive. Dragonflies skim across the water. Small fish dart beneath floating leaves. White birds stand perfectly still before suddenly catching breakfast with astonishing speed. Nature wakes alongside the people. Not far from the village, the flooded fields shimmer beneath the rising sunlight. The water now lies almost completely still. Only the occasional breeze creates small ripples across its broad surface. An elderly farmer arrives carrying nothing but a walking stick. He has no work to perform here this morning. The fields remain beneath shallow water. Still, he visits every day. His habit has become almost a form of quiet conversation with the land itself. He pauses near the edge. The dark silt beneath the water appears richer than ever. The flood has done its work well. He bends slowly, allowing his fingers to sink into the soft mud. It feels cool. Smooth. Almost silky. When he lifts his hand again, the black earth clings gently to his skin. He smiles to himself. This soil has fed his family for decades. It fed his parents before him. It fed grandparents whose faces now exist only in memory. The river has carried this gift year after year without asking anything in return except patience. Around him, other farmers arrive. Some stand quietly. Others kneel to examine the fields. A few exchange soft greetings before falling into comfortable silence. No one wishes to disturb the peaceful morning. They simply watch the flood. The water has fallen only a little since yesterday. Barely enough to notice. Yet experienced eyes recognize every small change. The exposed edges of certain fields have grown slightly wider. Tiny patches of black earth now appear where water covered everything only days before. These small signs matter. Soon enough, the flood will continue its slow retreat. Soon enough, work will begin again in earnest. For now, there is still time to prepare. Across another section of the village, a carpenter begins his day. His workshop stands beneath a broad awning woven from palm branches that provides welcome shade as the hours grow warmer. Pieces of acacia and sycamore wood lean neatly against one wall. Simple tools rest upon a low table. A wooden mallet. Copper chisels. Smooth stones for polishing. Lengths of rope. Nothing extravagant. Everything well used. This morning he is repairing a plow. The wooden frame has cracked after years of service. Carefully he removes the damaged section. His movements are slow and deliberate. Each cut must fit perfectly. The plow may appear simple, but the harvest of an entire family may depend upon its strength. He pauses often to examine his work. Not because he doubts himself. Because careful work deserves careful attention. His young apprentice sweeps away wood shavings gathering beneath the bench. The smell of fresh cut timber fills the air. Birdsong drifts through the open workshop. Somewhere nearby, a donkey brays once before returning to its breakfast. The carpenter smiles gently. The village is fully awake now. By mid-morning the warmth begins to settle across the valley. The cool mist has disappeared. Sunlight sparkles brightly upon every flooded field. Workers wrap light linen cloth around their heads. Clay water jars are placed beneath shaded trees where they will remain as cool as possible. Nobody expects the day to become easier. The Egyptian sun is faithful in its own way. It arrives each morning with quiet certainty. The farmers accept it just as they accept the flood. Both are part of life. Both shape every season. At the edge of the village stands a small shelter where scribes gather before beginning their rounds. Several papyrus rolls lie carefully stacked upon a wooden shelf. Ink cakes rest inside small boxes beside sharpened reed pens. One scribe carefully mixes black ink with a little water inside a shallow dish. His brush glides smoothly across a scrap of papyrus. He tests the flow. Satisfied, he rolls the sheet neatly and places it inside a leather case. Today's work will take him along the flood's edge once again. He enjoys these walks more than sitting indoors. The changing river offers something new every day. As he leaves the shelter, he passes several laborers carrying woven baskets filled with fresh reeds. The reeds will be dried beneath the sun before being woven into sleeping mats, baskets, roof coverings, and simple furniture. Very little from the river goes unused. Even plants growing along the banks become part of daily life. One laborer pauses to wipe his brow. Although the morning is still young, the heat is already building. He drinks slowly from a clay cup before continuing. The others wait patiently. There is no need to rush. The reeds will reach the workshop soon enough. Farther along the river, several fishermen have returned with their morning catch. The fish glisten silver beneath the sunlight. Some are laid carefully upon woven trays to dry. Others will be cooked fresh before midday. A merchant arrives carrying a small set of balanced scales. Trades begin quietly. Fish for onions. Fish for grain. Fish for fresh linen. No coins pass between hands. Instead, everyday life flows through simple exchange. Each family possesses something another family needs. Everyone depends upon everyone else. The merchant keeps careful mental notes of each agreement. Trust has grown over many years. Faces are familiar. Families have known one another across generations. The flood strengthens these relationships. A successful season benefits everyone. Nearby, the smell of fresh bread once again fills the air. Several women remove warm loaves from clay ovens using long wooden paddles. The crusts are golden. Steam rises gently from small cracks along the surface. Children gather nearby, hoping for the first pieces. One woman laughs softly as she tears a loaf into several portions. The bread is still too hot to hold comfortably. She passes each piece carefully from hand to hand. Simple meals become small celebrations when shared. The warmth of fresh bread feels especially comforting after hours of early morning work. As the sun climbs higher, the village gradually slows. The busiest work shifts toward shaded places. Animals seek shelter beneath trees. People move more deliberately. The heavy afternoon is approaching. Inside many homes, woven reed curtains are hung across doorways. They soften the bright sunlight while allowing small breezes to pass through. The interiors become pleasantly dim. Children rest upon woven mats. Some drift into short afternoon naps. Others listen while grandparents tell gentle stories from long ago. Many stories begin with the river. Some tell of floods remembered from childhood. Others speak of remarkable harvests. Still others recall difficult seasons when the water arrived too low or too late. These stories are never told to frighten. They are shared so younger generations understand the delicate balance upon which every family depends. The Nile is generous. But it asks for patience. It asks for careful preparation. It asks for gratitude. Beyond the village, the flood water quietly continues its patient work. Tiny particles of rich silt drip downward through the calm water, settling little by little upon the waiting fields. No one can watch this happen with the eye alone. It is too slow. Too gentle. Yet every farmer knows it is happening. Every silent hour beneath the water adds another thin layer of fertile earth. The future harvest is already beginning, even though no seed has yet touched the soil. Nature prepares quietly. The people prepare quietly as well. Neither competes with the other. They move together in the same peaceful rhythm. As the afternoon light grows warmer and softer, a faint breeze returns across the valley. Palm leaves begin to sway once more. The reeds whisper gently beside the riverbank. The flooded fields shimmer beneath the golden sun, while ordinary men and women continue their calm routines with the quiet confidence earned through generations of living beside the faithful Nile, whose slow and generous flood remains the greatest fortune any farmer in ancient Egypt could ever hope to receive. The afternoon stretches peacefully across the valley, and the light begins to soften almost without anyone noticing. The bright white glow of midday slowly turns warmer, covering the flooded fields in gentle shades of gold. The Nile reflects the changing sky with quiet grace, its broad surface glowing as though it carries a little of the sun within its calm waters. The wind moves again. Not strongly. Only enough to stir the tops of the papyrus reeds and send tiny waves toward the muddy banks. Every ripple catches the light for a brief moment before disappearing. The river never seems completely still. Even in its quietest hours, it is always moving. Always traveling. Always carrying life. A farmer named Hori walks slowly along the edge of one of his flooded fields. His sandals leave shallow prints in the damp earth where the water has already begun to retreat. He carries a simple walking stick cut from tamarisk wood many years ago. He does not think of himself as wealthy. His house is modest. His clothing is plain. His hands are rough from decades beneath the Egyptian sun. Yet today, as he looks across the wide sheet of flood water covering his land, he feels something close to contentment. This is his fortune. Not coins. Not jewels. Not carved statues. His wealth lies beneath the quiet water. The rich black silt settling gently onto his fields will soon become wheat. The wheat will become bread. The bread will feed his family. To him, that is more valuable than anything else. He kneels beside the water's edge and watches a single reed bending in the breeze. A dragonfly lands upon it. For several long moments, neither moves. The little insect glitters blue and green beneath the afternoon sun. Then, without warning, it lifts into the air and disappears across the flooded plain. Hori smiles faintly. Small moments like these have filled his life. They are so ordinary that many people might never remember them. Yet together they become the quiet fabric of every season. Behind him, the village carries on with its steady rhythm. The sound of weaving drifts from one shaded courtyard. Inside, 3 women sit cross-legged before a large upright loom. Long threads of flax stretch tightly between smooth wooden beams. Patient hands guide colored threads through them, one row after another. Tap. Pull. Tighten. Tap again. The pattern grows slowly. No one expects a fine piece of linen to appear in a single afternoon. It may take many days before the cloth is finished. The women talk softly as they work. Sometimes they discuss the coming planting season. Sometimes they remember floods from years gone by. Sometimes they simply enjoy the comfortable silence shared between friends who have worked beside one another for much of their lives. One of them pauses to stretch her shoulders. Her muscles ache gently after hours at the loom. She steps outside into the shade of a sycamore tree. The breeze touches her face. She closes her eyes for only a moment. Nearby, children are playing with small figures shaped from river clay. One has made tiny cattle. Another has shaped a little fishing boat. A third carefully builds a miniature field surrounded by tiny ridges, copying the irrigation channels he has watched adults repair. Their play reflects the world around them. They imitate what they know. One child pretends to measure the rising flood with a stick. Another announces that the harvest will be plentiful. The others nod very seriously before bursting into quiet laughter. Even games are shaped by the Nile. Across the village, an elderly scribe sits beneath the shelter of a palm roof. Several young apprentices gather around him. Each holds a smooth piece of limestone used for practice. Their reed pens move carefully across the pale surface. The scribe walks slowly among them. He rarely raises his voice. Instead, he pauses beside each student. A gentle correction here. A slight adjustment there. The shape of one sign. The spacing of another. Writing requires patience just as farming does. Mistakes are not failures. They are simply opportunities to learn more carefully. One apprentice sighs quietly after making an uneven mark. The old scribe smiles kindly. He wipes the stone clean with a damp cloth. Again, he says softly. The boy begins once more. This time his hand is steadier. Outside the shelter, 2 oxen stand patiently beneath a broad tree. Their work has been light during the flood season. They spend much of the day resting, chewing slowly while flicking flies away with long tails. The animals are valuable companions. Without them, turning the soil after the flood would demand far greater effort. A young stable boy brushes one of the oxen carefully. Dust rises from its thick hide before drifting away on the breeze. He speaks quietly as he works. The ox pays little attention. Its eyes remain half-closed in peaceful contentment. The boy has known these animals since they were calves. He knows which one prefers fresh reeds. He knows which grows impatient before feeding time. He notices small changes that strangers would never see. Care grows from familiarity. Not far away, a merchant prepares for tomorrow's journey to another village farther downstream. His small boat rests near the shore, gently rocking against its rope. He checks each bundle before loading it aboard. Several baskets of onions. Clay jars filled with oil. fresh linen folded neatly into stacks. A few carefully wrapped pieces of pottery. Everything must be balanced. Too much weight on one side could make the boat difficult to handle. He works slowly beneath the warm afternoon light. His son helps carry smaller bundles. The boy asks questions about the villages they will visit. His father answers patiently. Every settlement along the Nile has its own familiar faces. Some are known for skilled potters. Others for beautiful woven cloth. Some raise excellent cattle. Others harvest sweet dates from wide groves of palms. Although each village has its own character, they are all connected by the river. The Nile is their road, their guide, their companion. As the afternoon continues, the flood water quietly begins to reveal more of the land. Only a little. Barely enough for anyone but experienced farmers to notice. Tiny islands of rich black earth emerge near the edges of the fields. They shine darkly beneath the sunlight. The exposed soil feels soft beneath bare feet. A group of farmers walks among these newly uncovered places. None of them carries seed yet. It is still too early. Instead, they examine the ground. One bends to scoop a handful of damp earth. He rubs it gently between thumb and fingers. It crumbles perfectly. Rich. Smooth. Alive. He nods with quiet satisfaction. His neighbor does the same. No long conversation is needed. The earth speaks clearly enough. The flood has brought another generous gift. High overhead, a flock of white ibises crosses the sky. Their wings move together in slow, graceful rhythm. They settle among the reeds, where they begin searching patiently for food. Their reflections dance upon the quiet water below. For centuries these birds have arrived with the flood. Children grow up expecting to see them. Older people greet them almost like familiar neighbors. The changing seasons belong not only to people but to every living creature along the river. As the sun lowers farther toward the western horizon, the heat finally begins to ease. A welcome breeze drifts across the valley. Palm leaves rustle softly. The smell of warm earth mixes with the fresh scent rising from the flood water. Workers straighten tired backs. Some wipe sweat from their brows. Others simply pause for a long drink of cool water stored in clay jars beneath shaded roofs. The water tastes clean. Slightly cool. Wonderfully refreshing after a long afternoon. One elderly woman sits outside her home spinning flax. Her granddaughter sits beside her holding a basket of freshly cleaned fibers. The child watches every movement with careful attention. The spindle turns. The thread grows longer. The grandmother's hands move almost effortlessly. Years have made every motion graceful. After a while she passes the spindle to the little girl. The thread breaks almost immediately. The child looks disappointed. The old woman only smiles. She ties the broken ends together. Then she gently guides the child's fingers. Again the spindle turns. This time the thread remains unbroken. A quiet smile appears on the little girl's face. No celebration follows. Only quiet satisfaction. Learning arrives one small success at a time. As evening approaches, long shadows stretch across the village. The flooded fields glow with deep shades of amber. The Nile reflects clouds touched with soft pink and pale orange. Boats return one by one toward the shore. Fishermen lift baskets containing the day's catch. Merchants tie ropes securely to wooden posts. Children help carry empty jars back to their homes. The village slowly gathers itself after another peaceful day. Cooking fires begin to appear. Thin columns of smoke rise gently into the evening air. The familiar aroma of bread baking once again fills the narrow streets. Nearby, lentils simmer quietly inside clay pots. Fresh fish crackles softly above glowing coals. Someone crushes garlic with a smooth stone. Someone else slices onions for the evening meal. The scents mingle together in the cooling air, drifting through open doorways and shaded courtyards. Families begin returning home. The day's labor has left everyone pleasantly tired. Shoulders ache. Hands are dusty. Feet carry traces of rich black mud. Yet there is comfort in honest weariness. It is the kind of tiredness that comes after meaningful work. Children wash their feet before entering their homes. Parents smile as they watch them. Grandparents settle onto low stools outside, enjoying the cooler evening breeze. Conversations remain gentle. No one needs to hurry anywhere now. The flood continues its silent work beneath the fading light. Even while families gather for supper, the dark silt settles quietly onto the fields. The river asks for no applause. It performs its ancient task with quiet faithfulness, just as it has done for countless generations. Above the western desert, the sun slowly slips below the horizon. Its final light paints the Nile in bands of gold, copper, and deep crimson before gradually giving way to soft blue twilight. One by one, the first evening stars begin to appear once again. The same stars. The same river. The same patient cycle that has shaped the lives of farmers for centuries. And as darkness gently returns to the valley, bringing cooler air, quiet voices, and the peaceful promise of another night beside the generous Nile, the ordinary people of ancient Egypt settle comfortably into their familiar routines, knowing that tomorrow the river will still be there, flowing steadily through the heart of their world, carrying with it another quiet blessing toward fields that wait patiently for the season of planting. Evening settles over the Nile as gently as a linen cloth laid across a sleeping child. The last warmth of the sun lingers upon the mud brick walls, while the first cool breath of night begins to drift across the flooded fields. Shadows grow longer until they quietly blend together, softening every path, every palm tree, and every small fishing boat resting along the riverbank. The valley seems to exhale. After another day of steady work, both people and animals welcome the calm that arrives with twilight. The river reflects the fading sky in smooth ribbons of bronze and pale blue. Here and there, small circles spread across the surface where fish briefly rise before disappearing again beneath the quiet water. A heron stands perfectly still among the reeds, waiting with endless patience. Nothing in the valley appears hurried. The Nile has taught patience to everything that lives beside it. A narrow footpath leads from the village toward a cluster of date palms growing close to the water. Along this path walks a young woman carrying an empty woven basket beneath one arm. The basket once held fresh bread delivered to an elderly neighbor who could no longer bake as easily as she once had. Now it is empty. Still, she enjoys the walk home. The evening breeze carries the sweet scent of damp earth mixed with the fragrance of palm leaves that have spent all day beneath the warm sun. Tiny insects dance through the last rays of light, almost glowing as they move. She pauses beside the river. For a few quiet moments she simply watches the flood water. The surface has fallen ever so slightly since yesterday. Only a careful eye would notice. She smiles. Her father will notice. He always does. When she returns home, he will almost certainly walk down to the fields before sunrise to see the change for himself. It is something he has done nearly every morning for as long as she can remember. Inside another home, an elderly couple prepares the evening meal together. The husband carefully removes glowing coals from the center of the cooking fire with a long wooden stick. His wife places a clay pot above the steady heat. Inside, Lentils simmer quietly with onions, garlic, and a handful of herbs gathered from a small garden beside the house. The smell fills the room slowly. Simple food. Familiar food. Food that asks for no celebration because it has become part of everyday life. Nearby, flat loaves of bread rest beneath a clean linen cloth. A small bowl of figs waits beside them. Fresh fish, caught before sunrise, has already been roasted until its skin became lightly crisp. Nothing about the meal is extravagant. Yet everything has been earned through patient labor. The grain was planted months before. The onions carefully tended. The herbs watered. The fish caught by steady hands upon the river. Every bite carries the work of many ordinary people. Across the village, a group of boys helps gather firewood stored beneath a simple shelter made from reeds. They stack each bundle neatly against the wall. Dry wood is valuable. Although Egypt receives little rain, wood suitable for cooking fires is never wasted. Even broken branches are carefully collected. Nothing useful is left behind. One boy carries more than he can comfortably hold. Several sticks fall onto the ground. His older brother laughs softly, not to embarrass him, but because he remembers doing exactly the same thing years before. Together they gather the scattered branches. The younger boy smiles. Small mistakes disappear quickly when shared with kind hands. As darkness deepens, cooking fires become tiny points of warm light scattered throughout the village. Smoke rises gently into the still evening air before fading among the stars. The smell of baking bread drifts from one courtyard. Roasted fish from another. Someone nearby prepares beans. Elsewhere, a family stirs barley into a thick porridge for tomorrow's breakfast. Every home has its own familiar scents. Every doorway carries memories. A little farther from the village center stands the house of the local potter. His courtyard is filled with rows of newly shaped vessels drying beneath the evening sky. Large grain jars. Small drinking cups. Cooking bowls. Wide storage pots. The clay still holds the warmth of the afternoon sun. The potter walks slowly among them. His hands gently tap each piece. He listens carefully. A slight crack hidden within the clay often reveals itself through sound long before it can be seen. One vessel rings clearly. Another produces a dull note. He sets the second aside. It will be broken apart tomorrow and mixed with fresh clay for another attempt. Nothing is truly wasted. Even broken pottery finds a new purpose. His grandson watches with quiet fascination. He asks how the pot knows whether it is strong. The old man smiles. The clay speaks, he says softly. The child tilts his head. He listens. At first he hears nothing except the gentle tapping. Perhaps one day, after many years beside the wheel, he too will hear what his grandfather hears. Learning often begins long before understanding arrives. Near the riverbank, several fishermen finish cleaning their boats. Each craft is simple. Wooden planks fastened together. A single mast for days when the wind is favorable. Oars polished smooth by countless journeys. One fisherman carefully coils a rope into neat circles. Another mends a tear in his net beneath the light of a small oil lamp. The lamp flickers whenever the evening breeze wanders through. His fingers move steadily. Over. Under. Pull tight. Again. Every repaired knot means fewer lost fish tomorrow. The work is repetitive. Peaceful. Almost meditative. He does not count how many knots he has tied. He simply continues until the net is whole once again. Along the edge of the flooded fields, frogs begin their nightly chorus. Their voices rise gently from every shallow pool left behind by the flood. The sound spreads across the valley like soft music. Children have fallen asleep listening to these voices for generations. Parents hardly notice them anymore. The frogs have become as familiar as the flowing river itself. Not far away, a shepherd guides his small flock toward a simple enclosure made from woven branches. The sheep move slowly after spending the afternoon grazing upon patches of higher ground untouched by the flood. Dust clings lightly to their wool. One small lamb pauses repeatedly to nibble fresh shoots growing beside the path. The shepherd waits patiently each time. There is no reason to rush home. Night is peaceful. The flock knows the way. Inside the enclosure he checks each animal carefully. A scratched leg. A loose piece of wool caught upon a branch. Nothing serious. He runs gentle hands across their backs before securing the gate. Tomorrow morning they will leave again. For now, they settle quietly upon the cool earth. Across the valley, the flood water reflects hundreds of stars. The sky appears almost endless. Ancient Egyptians often looked upward during these calm evenings. The heavens became companions after long days beneath the sun. The stars marked the passing seasons. Certain constellations rose before dawn when the flood approached. Others appeared during harvest. People did not separate the sky from the earth. Both belonged to the same quiet rhythm. An elderly farmer climbs onto the flat roof of his home carrying a woven mat. His wife follows with two small pillows stuffed with dried reeds. Sleeping upon the roof has become their habit during the warmer months. The breeze is stronger here. The night feels cooler. Before lying down, the old man looks toward the river. Moonlight has begun to spread across the flood water. The fields shine softly beneath its pale glow. He remembers another night many years ago. He had stood here beside his own father. The flood had been especially generous that year. The wheat grew tall enough that children disappeared among the stalks while playing. He smiles quietly at the memory. Time moves like the river. Always forward. Never hurried. Never stopping. Beside him, his wife arranges the woven mat. She smooths its edges carefully before sitting down. For a while neither speaks. There is no need. After so many years together, shared silence has become one of life's greatest comforts. Farther downstream, a merchant's boat rocks gently against its mooring. Tomorrow he will continue his journey northward, carrying goods from village to village. Tonight he sleeps beneath a simple linen blanket stretched across the deck. The flood has made travel easier. Channels once too shallow now welcome boats carrying grain, pottery, woven cloth, baskets, and fresh vegetables. Commerce follows the water just as faithfully as farming does. The Nile connects lives that may never otherwise meet. One village sends onions. Another sends fish. Another produces fine linen. Another shapes beautiful pottery. The river quietly ties them all together. As the evening deepens into night, the village grows still. Oil lamps are gently extinguished one by one. Conversations fade. Cooking fires become glowing embers. Only the frogs continue singing. Only the river continues flowing. Somewhere in the darkness, a breeze stirs the tops of the papyrus reeds. They whisper softly against one another. The sound is so gentle that it blends with the movement of the water until it becomes impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. In one small home, a mother rises briefly during the night. She checks the clay water jar near the doorway. She folds a linen cloth over her sleeping child whose blanket has slipped aside. Then she lies down once more. The house grows quiet again. Outside, the flood continues its silent work. Another thin layer of fertile silt settles upon the waiting fields. No eye can witness each tiny grain finding its resting place. Yet together, millions upon millions of these tiny grains will shape the coming harvest. Fortune arrives quietly. Not in a single moment. Not with loud celebration. It gathers little by little, one layer of rich earth upon another, one gentle flood after another, one peaceful season after the next. And beneath the wide Egyptian sky, where the stars watch over the sleeping valley and the Nile flows with timeless patience, another calm night wraps itself around the ordinary farmers, fishermen, potters, weavers, and families whose lives rise and fall with the faithful rhythm of the great river, carrying them softly toward another dawn that is already waiting beyond the eastern horizon. The eastern horizon is still wrapped in darkness when the first sounds of morning begin to return to the Nile Valley. Night has not completely departed, yet the world already senses that another day is quietly approaching. The stars remain overhead, though a few have begun to lose their brightness against the faint gray light gathering in the distance. The air is wonderfully cool. It is the coolest moment the valley will know all day. A gentle breeze moves across the flood water, carrying the fresh scent of wet earth mixed with the sweet smell of papyrus reeds. Somewhere in the darkness, a single bird begins to sing. Another answers from farther along the riverbank. Their quiet calls drift through the stillness without disturbing it. The Nile flows on. Its current never pauses. While the village has slept, the river has continued its ancient journey, carrying water, silt, drifting reeds, and tiny fish through the broad green valley. The flood has continued its patient work through the night. Almost invisibly, the water has settled a little more. The change is so small that only those who have spent a lifetime beside the river would notice. An elderly farmer named Mena notices immediately. He wakes before anyone else in his household. For many years he has risen while the stars are still visible. His body no longer needs anyone to wake him. The quiet rhythm of the Nile has become his own. He sits up slowly on the woven mat spread across the roof of his home. For a few moments he simply listens. The frogs are quieter now. The breeze is steady. A donkey shifts somewhere below. He hears the distant splash of an early fisherman pushing away from shore. Everything sounds familiar. Everything sounds right. He stands carefully, stretching his back before looking toward the river. Even in the dim light, he thinks the flood has fallen slightly. Perhaps only the width of his hand. Perhaps even less. Still, he smiles. Every small change matters. He climbs down the simple ladder into the courtyard below, where his wife is already preparing the first fire of the morning. She kneels beside yesterday's ashes. With practiced hands she gathers a few pieces of dry reed, several small branches, and a little straw. A single glowing ember has survived beneath the ash. She blows gently. A tiny orange light appears. Again she blows. The ember grows brighter. Soon a small flame begins dancing among the reeds. She adds another stick. Then another. Within moments, the fire is quietly alive once more. She places a clay pot above it. Soon water will warm. Bread from yesterday will be softened. The household will begin another peaceful day. Nothing is wasted. Even the fire itself continues from one day into the next whenever possible. Fresh flames are welcomed, but old embers are treasured. Across the village, other homes slowly awaken. Small ribbons of smoke rise into the cool morning air. The smell of warm bread soon follows. One by one, wooden doors open. Sandals scrape softly across packed earth. Clay jars are lifted onto shoulders. Children still wrapped in sleep rub their eyes while watching adults begin their familiar routines. No morning feels exactly the same. Yet every morning feels comfortingly familiar. Near the riverbank, several fishermen have already begun their work. Their boats glide quietly through narrow channels created by the flood. Mist rests lightly upon the water. It curls around the reeds before slowly drifting away beneath the first light of dawn. One fisherman rows without speaking. His oar slips into the water almost silently. Each stroke sends gentle ripples outward. The boat seems less like a vessel and more like another living part of the river itself. He reaches a place where the flood has covered an open meadow. Months ago, goats grazed there. Children chased one another across the dry grass. Now only the tops of a few reeds remain visible above the shallow water. Fish have gathered here. The fisherman knows this from experience. The flood always brings them. He lowers his net. Then he waits. Waiting has become one of the quiet skills passed from father to son. Patience catches more fish than hurried hands ever could. Along another path, a group of farmers walks together toward their fields. None carries heavy tools this morning. Instead, each holds only a walking stick. Some carry small baskets filled with simple breakfasts wrapped in linen cloth. They expect to remain near the fields for several hours, watching the slow retreat of the water and discussing the work that will soon begin. The conversation is gentle. One farmer remembers a flood from many years earlier. Another recalls how his grandfather always judged the richness of the soil by its smell. A younger man listens carefully. These are lessons that cannot be found upon papyrus. They live inside memory. They travel through spoken words. When the group reaches the edge of the flooded land, they stop. The sun has not yet risen. The sky is painted with soft shades of lavender, pale gold, and gentle blue. The water reflects every color. For a long time no one speaks. They simply watch. The floodwater lies calm before them. Small patches of dark earth now appear across the nearest field. Yesterday those places were still beneath water. Today they have returned. The rich black soil glistens with moisture. One of the older farmers kneels beside it. He scoops up a handful. The earth feels cool against his skin. He closes his fingers slowly. When he opens them again, the soil falls apart into tiny soft pieces. Perfect. He nods quietly. Another farmer smiles. Soon. Not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But soon. The planting season is coming. Hope does not arrive like a sudden storm. It rises gently, just as dawn rises over the Nile. Nearby, several white egrets wander through the shallow water. They step carefully, lifting each foot with remarkable grace before placing it down again. Occasionally one pauses. Its long neck bends. Its sharp beak disappears beneath the surface. Moments later it lifts its head with a tiny fish. Breakfast comes quietly. Nothing is hurried. Back in the village, the potter has already begun preparing fresh clay. He walks barefoot toward the river carrying 2 empty baskets. The flood has left excellent clay along certain parts of the bank. He knows exactly where to find it. His father showed him these places long ago. The best clay lies beneath a thin layer of darker silt. He kneels beside the bank. His hands sink slowly into the cool earth. The clay is smooth, firm, almost silky. He fills each basket carefully, removing small stones whenever he finds them. Good pottery begins long before the wheel starts turning. It begins here, beside the river, with careful hands and patient eyes. As he returns to his workshop, he passes several women gathering fresh papyrus stems. Some will become baskets. Others will become rope. A few may even be prepared for making writing material. Nothing growing beside the Nile exists without purpose. Even the simplest reed may one day help carry grain, hold water, or preserve words for future generations. The women cut each stem close to the base. They gather them into neat bundles tied with flax cord. Their work is quiet. The only sounds are the gentle slice of copper blades and the rustling of leaves brushing together in the breeze. Further downstream, a young apprentice accompanies an experienced canal keeper. The older man walks slowly along one of the irrigation channels that will soon guide water toward the fields after planting begins. The flood has covered much of the canal, but its banks still require careful attention. The apprentice watches closely. The older man points toward a section where the bank has begun to soften. He presses it gently with his sandal. The earth gives way slightly. "This will need repairing," he says softly. The apprentice nods. He remembers the place. There is no need to write everything down. Some knowledge is carried in the mind. Some is carried in the feet that walk the same paths year after year. The canal keeper continues. Every few steps he pauses. A fallen branch is moved aside. A small opening where water might escape is marked with a reed. A loose stone is carefully replaced. Each task seems small. Yet together they protect the harvest long before the first seed is planted. The village itself becomes busier as the morning sun finally rises above the eastern hills. Golden light spreads across the flood water. The mist disappears. Palm trees cast long shadows across the paths. Children carry baskets of fresh bread to grandparents. Merchants arrange goods outside shaded stalls. Weavers return to their looms. Carpenters lift wooden tools. The smell of warm grain fills the air once more. Life begins another day. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Simply and peacefully. As it always has. The Nile watches over them all. The fishermen. The farmers. The scribes. The potters. The shepherds. The children running barefoot along the village paths. The elderly women grinding grain before sunrise. The old men quietly studying the flood with experienced eyes. Every ordinary life is gently woven into the river's endless story. And while the sun climbs a little higher over the green valley, the great flood continues to withdraw one peaceful inch at a time, leaving behind the dark, fertile earth that has always been the truest fortune of ancient Egypt, promising another season of quiet labor, shared meals, gentle evenings, and hopeful mornings beside the calm and faithful waters of the Nile. Morning settles comfortably over the Nile Valley, and the sunlight grows warmer with every passing moment. The coolness of dawn begins to fade, though traces of it still linger beneath the thick shade of sycamore trees and inside the mud brick homes that have not yet surrendered the night's gentle air. The village has fully awakened. Smoke rises from many small cooking fires, drifting lazily upward before disappearing into the clear blue sky. The smell of fresh bread hangs over the narrow paths like a familiar welcome. Somewhere, grain is being ground between smooth stones. Somewhere else, reeds are being woven into baskets. The steady sounds blend together into the quiet music of another ordinary day. Nothing about the morning feels unusual. That is exactly what makes it beautiful. For the people of ancient Egypt, ordinary days are precious. Most of life is not shaped by great celebrations or royal ceremonies. Instead, it is shaped by mornings like this one, when the river is calm, the flood is generous, and every family quietly begins another day of honest work. Along the edge of the flooded fields, Sunlight sparkles across the shallow water. Thousands of tiny reflections dance together whenever the breeze passes over the surface. The rich black earth beneath the water cannot yet be seen everywhere, but each day reveals a little more. The flood is slowly giving the land back. Patiently. Without haste. Several farmers gather beneath a large acacia tree where its broad branches offer welcome shade. They have brought simple wooden stools from their homes, though some choose to sit directly upon woven mats spread across the ground. One man unwraps a small piece of bread. Another shares a handful of dried dates. Someone passes around cool water from a clay jar that has remained in the shade since sunrise. Their breakfast is simple. Bread, dates, onions, a little cheese made from goat's milk, fresh water. No one speaks very loudly. Morning conversations are gentle. The farmers look toward the flooded fields as they eat. Their eyes naturally drift to the changing shoreline. One notices a small patch of earth that appeared only yesterday. Another points toward a section where the water still remains deeper than expected. These observations are not made with worry. They are simply part of understanding the river. Every season teaches something. Every flood has its own quiet personality. Nearby, an older farmer traces lines in the damp soil with the end of his walking stick. A young boy kneels beside him. The child watches carefully. The old man draws simple shapes representing irrigation channels. He explains how water should move after the flood has completely withdrawn. Too much water in one place can weaken young plants. Too little leaves them thirsty. The channels must guide the river's gift carefully across every field. The boy nods slowly. He studies each line. Then he copies the drawing beside it. His channels are not perfectly straight. Some curve more than they should. The old farmer smiles kindly. Straight lines will come with time. Understanding comes first. Skill follows quietly afterward. Beyond the fields, the riverbank has become busy with fishermen returning from their morning work. Several small boats rest side by side upon the gently sloping shore. Their wooden hulls are darkened by years of water and sunlight. Each bears small marks left by repairs made season after season. One fisherman lifts a woven basket from his boat. Inside, silver fish glisten beneath the morning sun. They move only slightly now. Soon they will be cleaned and shared. Some will feed his own family. Others will be traded in the village. Nothing from the river is taken for granted. Every catch is received with quiet appreciation. A young girl arrives carrying a clay bowl covered with linen cloth. Inside are warm pieces of fresh bread. Her mother has sent breakfast for her father, who remained upon the river since before dawn. She walks carefully across the uneven bank. When she reaches the boat, her father smiles warmly. He tears a piece of bread and offers half to her. They eat together without many words. The river flows beside them. Birds circle overhead. It is a peaceful beginning to the day. Further along the shore, two brothers repair the narrow wooden dock where boats are tied. The flood has loosened several supporting posts. Using smooth wooden mallets, they gently drive each post deeper into the soft riverbank. The work is steady rather than difficult. Tap. Pause. Check the post. Tap again. Occasionally they stop to judge whether it stands straight. One brother steps back several paces before nodding with satisfaction. A dock that leans today may become a problem tomorrow. Care taken now saves effort later. Near the center of the village, the sound of weaving fills another shaded courtyard. Several women sit together around a large loom. Sunlight filters gently through palm leaf roofing above them, creating moving patterns of light across the growing linen cloth. The threads stretch tightly between wooden beams. One woman passes the shuttle carefully through them. Another presses each row firmly into place. The cloth slowly grows longer. No one counts how many rows have been completed. The work itself becomes its own quiet rhythm. A small child sleeps nearby upon a woven mat. The steady tapping of the loom seems almost like a lullaby. His breathing remains slow and peaceful. Every now and then his mother glances toward him before returning to her work. She smiles softly. She knows that by the time he is grown, he too will understand these familiar sounds. The village teaches gently. Children learn simply by living among people who work with patience. Not far away, the potter has begun mixing fresh clay collected earlier that morning. He pours water into a broad pit lined with smooth stone. The dry clay slowly softens beneath his hands. He presses it carefully, folding it over itself again and again. Tiny air pockets must be removed. Small stones must be found and discarded. The clay grows smoother with every movement. His apprentice joins him. Together they knead the clay with quiet concentration. The cool earth feels pleasant against their hands after the warmth of the growing day. Neither speaks much. The work requires attention. When the clay is finally ready, the potter carries a rounded lump to his wheel. He sits upon a low stool. One foot begins turning the heavy stone wheel beneath him. Slowly at first. Then steadily. The clay begins to spin. His wet hands rise gently along its sides. A simple bowl begins to appear. The walls grow thinner. The rim becomes perfectly even. Watching the transformation feels almost magical, though there is nothing mysterious about it. Only years of practice. Only patience. Only quiet repetition. Across another part of the village, the local baker prepares another batch of bread. Flour is mixed with water inside a large clay bowl. Salt is added carefully. The dough is folded again and again until it becomes smooth. Nearby, an older woman feeds a small amount of yesterday's fermented dough into the fresh mixture. She smiles at the young girl watching her. "This helps tomorrow begin," she says gently. The child does not fully understand. One day she will. Just as old embers light the next morning's fire, a little dough from yesterday helps today's bread rise. Life beside the Nile often moves this way. One day quietly prepares the next. One season prepares another. Nothing stands alone. Outside the bakery, the smell of warm bread drifts through the streets. Merchants passing with donkeys pause briefly to breathe it in. Children smile. Even tired workers seem to stand a little straighter. Fresh bread has a comforting way of brightening an ordinary morning. Beyond the homes, several canal workers inspect the small embankments that will soon direct water toward newly planted fields. Although much of the flood water still covers the lower ground, preparations continue every day. The leader of the group walks slowly along each bank. He notices where the earth has settled. He gently presses the soil with the heel of his sandal. If it feels firm, he moves on. If it feels soft, he marks the place with a small bundle of reeds. Repairs will come soon. Nothing is ignored. The canals are almost as important as the flood itself. The Nile brings the water. The canals guide it. Together they allow life to spread far beyond the river's edge. As the sun climbs higher, the shade beneath the trees becomes more valuable. Workers pause briefly to drink cool water stored in porous clay jars. The jars sweat gently in the warm air, keeping the water pleasantly cool through slow evaporation. One farmer lifts a cup to his lips. He drinks slowly. There is no greater luxury during a warm Egyptian morning than cool water and a moment of rest beneath a broad tree. Around him, dragonflies drip lazily through shafts of sunlight. Bees move quietly among flowering plants growing near the village gardens. Palm fronds rustle overhead. The sounds remain soft, comforting. The valley seems content. By late morning, more of the flood water catches the bright sunlight, turning the fields into mirrors that reflect both sky and earth. White clouds drift slowly across the blue above, while their reflections float peacefully below. The farmers look across the shining landscape with quiet confidence. They know there is still much work ahead. The planting season will demand long days. The harvest will ask even more of them. Their hands will grow sore. Their backs will ache. Their sandals will wear thin against the rich black soil. Yet none of those labors begin without this gentle season of waiting. The flood has always been the first blessing. Everything else grows from it. And so the ordinary people of the Nile continue through another peaceful morning, trusting the river as their parents did, and their grandparents before them, allowing its calm rhythm to shape their days while the fertile earth slowly emerges from beneath the quiet flood, carrying the silent promise of another season filled with bread, family, honest work, and the enduring fortune that only the great Nile can provide. The sun climbs steadily across the sky, and by the middle of the morning the valley is wrapped in a warm, golden light. The cool air that greeted the first hours of dawn has gently slipped away. Now the familiar heat of Egypt begins to settle over the riverbanks, the palm groves, the mud brick homes, and the broad fields where the flood still rests in quiet pools. The warmth is expected. No one complains about it. The people who live beside the Nile have known the sun all their lives. They understand its rhythm just as they understand the rivers. Work begins early because of it. Rest comes when it is strongest. Evening brings relief. Every part of the day has its own gentle purpose. Along the edge of the village, a narrow path winds between gardens filled with onions, garlic, beans, and herbs. These gardens sit on slightly higher ground where the flood water does not remain for long. Small irrigation channels led carefully from the river, bringing just enough moisture to keep the plants healthy through the hotter months. An elderly woman walks slowly along one of these channels. She carries a small clay pitcher in one hand. The pitcher is not heavy. It holds only enough water for the youngest plants growing nearest her doorway. She pauses beside each row. A little water for the onions. A little for the herbs. Another careful pour beside the beans. She never wastes a single drop. Water is precious, even in the season of flood. The Nile is generous, but wise people never forget its value. As she finishes, she brushes a little dust from the broad leaves of a young herb plant. The leaves release a fresh fragrance into the warm air. She smiles. Soon these herbs will season another family meal. Nearby, bees move quietly from flower to flower. Their tiny wings shimmer in the sunlight. No one pays them much attention. They have always been here, helping the gardens grow without asking for recognition. The morning continues peacefully. At the carpenter's workshop, the steady sound of tools fills the shade beneath the palm roof. A long plank of sycamore wood rests across two supports. The carpenter runs his hand slowly over its surface. He closes one eye, looking along its length to see whether it remains perfectly straight. Satisfied, he begins smoothing it with a bronze blade. Thin curls of wood fall gently to the ground. The smell of fresh timber mixes with the warm scent of sun-dried mud bricks nearby. His apprentice gathers the shavings into a basket. They will not be thrown away. Some will help start cooking fires. Others may become bedding for small animals. Even wood curls have a purpose. Nothing useful is wasted. The carpenter wipes sweat from his forehead. The day is growing warmer. Still, he works without hurry. Each movement is careful. A poorly shaped beam might split months later. Good work asks for patience. His father often said that a hurried craftsman repairs the same job twice. The young apprentice remembers these words. He has heard them many times. Each time they seem a little wiser. Farther along the village path, a group of women gathers beneath a broad sycamore tree. The shade is deep and cool. Its leaves rustle softly whenever the breeze passes through. They bring baskets filled with flax fibers prepared earlier in the season. Today they will spin thread together. Each woman carries a spindle. The wooden shafts turn gently between practiced fingers. Long fibers twist into fine thread. Thread gathers slowly around each spindle. The movement becomes almost hypnotic. Twist. Pull. Wrap. Twist again. Their conversation drifts as gently as the breeze. One speaks about her grandson taking his first trip upon the river with his father. Another remembers a harvest from many years ago when the grain jars became so full that new storage baskets had to be woven before sunset. An older woman smiles quietly. She remembers even older seasons. Floods that arrived late. Floods that rose high enough to surround entire villages. Floods that left fields so rich that wheat seemed to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. Memory flows through the conversation like another quiet river. The younger women listen carefully. Stories are treasured here. Not because they are exciting. Because they carry experience. A story remembered today may become useful many years from now. Beyond the village, where the flood still covers wide stretches of farmland, a pair of brothers walk slowly through the shallow water. Their linen garments are rolled above their knees. The water is pleasantly cool. Small fish dart away as their feet disturb the muddy bottom. One brother carries several thin wooden stakes. The other carries bundles of woven reeds. They stop at the edge of each family field. Carefully they place markers where boundaries have disappeared beneath the flood. When the water finally withdraws, everyone will know exactly where planting should begin. There are no arguments. The markers have been placed this way for generations. Neighbors trust one another. Each family respects the land of the next. The flood may temporarily hide the boundaries. It never changes them. Nearby, a white ibis watches the brothers with quiet curiosity. The bird steps gracefully through the shallow water, searching for insects disturbed by their movement. Every few moments it lowers its long beak beneath the surface. Tiny ripples spread across the still water. The bird seems completely at home here. Like the farmers, it has learned the yearly rhythm of the Nile. As the flood comes, it comes. As the flood leaves, it leaves. Life simply follows. The sun continues climbing. By now, many workers pause for a short rest. Clay water jars stand beneath shaded shelters. The outside of each jar feels cool and damp. Tiny droplets gather on the porous clay. A young laborer fills several small cups. He carries them carefully to older men repairing an irrigation gate. They thank him with quiet smiles. The water tastes fresh. Almost sweet. After hours beneath the growing warmth, every sip feels deeply satisfying. One of the older men sits upon a smooth stone. His knees ache a little more each year. He stretches them slowly before returning to work. Age has changed the speed of his body. It has not changed the steadiness of his hands. He inspects the wooden gate carefully. The flood will eventually retreat enough for this gate to control the flow into nearby canals. It must open smoothly. It must close tightly. He adjusts a wooden peg no wider than his thumb. A small change. Yet an important one. The younger workers watch. Experience often reveals details invisible to younger eyes. Back in the village, a family prepares fresh papyrus for writing. Long green stalks lie across a low wooden table. The outer skin is carefully removed with a sharp knife. Thin strips from the soft inner stem are laid side by side. Another layer crosses over the first. The strips are pressed together beneath smooth stones. Time, pressure, and careful hands will slowly transform them into writing sheets. The youngest daughter watches with fascination. She touches one strip gently. It feels cool and damp. Her father smiles. Words need a good home, he says quietly. She nods, though she is still too young to understand fully. One day, perhaps, she will. The village baker has already finished the morning's largest batch of bread. Now the ovens cool slowly. Warmth still radiates from the clay walls. Inside the bakery, shelves hold rows of fresh loaves. Their crusts are golden brown. The smell fills every corner of the room. A little boy arrives carrying a woven basket. His mother has sent him to collect bread for the midday meal. The baker chooses 2 round loaves. He places them gently inside the basket and covers them with clean linen to keep them warm. The boy thanks him politely. As he walks home, the wonderful smell follows him through the narrow streets. A passing dog lifts its nose hopefully before settling back into the shade. The boy smiles but keeps walking. The bread belongs to his family. Not far from the bakery, several children help their grandfather sort grain stored from the previous harvest. Large woven baskets stand in neat rows inside a cool storage room. The old man scoops handfuls of wheat into shallow trays. The children pick out tiny stones, broken stalks, and bits of dried husk. Their fingers move carefully. The work teaches patience. One child becomes distracted by a small beetle crawling across the floor. He follows it with curious eyes. His grandfather laughs softly. "The grain first," he says with gentle kindness. The child grins and returns to his task. Outside, the beetle continues its own quiet journey through the dusty sunlight. As midday approaches, the sounds of work begin to slow. The heat grows heavier. Birdsong becomes less frequent. Even the breeze seems to rest for a little while. Animals gather beneath every patch of shade they can find. Goats lie quietly beneath palm trees. Oxen stand motionless, conserving their strength for the busy weeks that will come after the flood has completely withdrawn. Across the flooded fields, the water shines beneath the brilliant Egyptian sun. The dark silt continues settling silently below. No one can see each tiny grain finding its place. Yet everyone trusts that it is happening. The richest work of the Nile is often invisible. It asks only for time. And the people of ancient Egypt have learned, generation after generation, that time is one of the river's greatest gifts. So the village eases into the quiet warmth of midday, where labor pauses, bread cools upon wooden shelves, children rest in the shade, and the great Nile continues its timeless task, gently preparing the land for another season of planting, another season of harvest, and another year in the peaceful lives of the ordinary farmers whose greatest fortune is not measured in treasure, but in the faithful return of the river that has cared for them for centuries. Now the day has slowly slipped away once more. The warm light that rested upon the flooded fields has faded into soft evening colors. Gold became amber. Amber became violet. At last, the wide Egyptian sky has turned a deep and peaceful blue, where the first stars quietly return to their familiar places above the valley. The Nile flows on. It asks for nothing. It hurries for no one. It simply continues its endless journey, just as it did long before these villages were built, and just as it will long after every footprint in the soft black earth has been washed away. Along the riverbank, the last fishing boat has been tied securely for the night. Its wooden hull rocks gently against the calm water. The woven nets have been folded with care. Tomorrow they will be opened again. But tonight, they rest. Across the village, cooking fires have become glowing embers. The smell of fresh bread lingers softly in the cooling air. Clay jars stand quietly beside doorways, filled with cool water gathered before sunrise. The day's tools have been placed neatly against mud brick walls. Wooden hoes. Woven baskets. Fishing poles. Simple things that have served faithfully through another peaceful day. Families gather together one last time before sleep. Children curl beneath light linen blankets. Some sleep upon woven mats inside cool rooms. Others lie upon flat rooftops where the evening breeze carries the gentle scent of reeds and river water. Parents speak in quiet voices. Grandparents tell one final story beneath the stars. Before long, even those voices fade. The frogs begin their nightly chorus once again. Crickets answer from the grassy edges of the river. A heron stands silently among the papyrus, watching the moonlight shimmer across the calm current. Far beyond the green valley, the desert waits in complete stillness. Its sands glow faintly beneath the silver moon. There is no wind now. Only silence. Only peace. The flood has done its work. Patiently. Faithfully. Without celebration. Without applause. It has left behind the rich black earth that will soon welcome seeds. Those seeds will become green shoots. The shoots will become waving fields of wheat. The wheat will become warm bread shared around family tables. And so the quiet fortune of the Nile will continue, just as it always has. Not in a single grand moment, but in countless small moments. A father teaching his child how to read the river. A mother kneading bread before sunrise. A fisherman waiting patiently upon calm water. A potter shaping clay with steady hands. A scribe recording the slow rise and fall of the flood. A shepherd leading tired animals home beneath the evening sky. An old farmer smiling as he feels the rich earth between his fingers, grateful for another season the river has kindly given. History often remembers the names of kings. It remembers towering temples carved from stone. It remembers monuments that reach toward the sky. But beneath all of those great achievements lived ordinary people. Farmers who woke before dawn. Weavers who worked beneath shaded courtyards. Boat builders who shaped smooth planks beside the river. Children who laughed among the reeds. Families who shared simple meals after long days beneath the Egyptian sun. Their names may be forgotten. Their footsteps may have vanished from the dust long ago. Yet their quiet lives were the steady heartbeat of ancient Egypt. Every loaf of bread. Every basket of grain. Every clay jar filled with cool water. Every harvest gathered beneath the warm sky. All of it began with the patient hands of ordinary people and the faithful waters of the Nile. Tonight, the river still moves as it always has. The moon paints a silver path across its gentle current. Palm leaves whisper softly in the cool breeze. The stars shine over the valley with the same quiet light that comforted countless generations before. The village has fallen completely asleep. The boats rest. The animals dream. The ovens have grown cool. The fields wait peacefully beneath the night. And the great Nile continues its endless song, flowing through the darkness with calm and timeless grace, carrying tomorrow gently toward the people who will wake with the dawn, greet the river with grateful hearts, and begin another quiet day in the ancient world. So, as the warm night settles over the peaceful valley, and the gentle river carries the silence beneath a sky filled with endless stars, let the ancient world slowly drift farther into the distance. Let the soft rustle of papyrus fade into the quiet. Let the cool breeze from the Nile become lighter with every passing moment. Let the voices of the farmers, the fishermen, the potters, and the weavers become gentle echoes carried away upon the calm water. The stars remain. The river remains. The peaceful rhythm of the Nile remains. And with the ancient valley resting beneath the kindness of the night, there is nothing more to do. Only to listen. Only to rest. Only to let the quiet waters flow gently onward, as they have for thousands of years, until the peaceful sounds of ancient Egypt become as soft as a distant dream, and slowly, almost unnoticed, fade into silence.